The drilling machine broke through rock and ice for 3 weeks before it hit something it could not cut. Foreman Keth stood in the observation chamber of the mining station and watched the readings go wild. His scales turned pale blue with confusion as he studied the data. "That is not possible," he said to his assistant. "Run the scan again." The assistant ran it again. The result was the same. Beneath 2 kilometers of frozen moon rock, something enormous waited. Something made of metal that their best cutting lasers could not scratch. Keth had worked the mining operations of the Veth Consortium for 40 years. He had found strange things buried in moons and asteroids. Old satellites, crashed ships. Once he found an entire abandoned colony frozen in time, but he had never found anything like this. The object was nearly 4 kilometers long. It was shaped like a vessel, but no vessel in any database matched its design. The metal of its hull was unlike anything the scanners could identify. And according to the geological surveys, it had been buried here for at least 800 years. "Contact the consortium headquarters," Keth ordered. "Tell them we need a full archaeological team. Tell them we found something old. Something very, very old." The message went out across the communication networks. Within hours, it reached the ears of people far more important than mining executives. Within days, ships began arriving at the barren moon of Kethra 7. Scientists, military observers, representatives from the Galactic Concord itself. Keth watched all of this with growing unease. He was a simple miner. He wanted to dig up valuable minerals and go home to his family, but now his little moon had become the center of galactic attention, and no one would tell him why. The answer came when the first survey team cut through the outer layer of rock and reached the hull itself. They set up lights around the exposed section of metal. In the harsh white glare, Keth could see markings etched into the surface, letters in a language he did not recognize, a symbol that looked like a bird with spread wings, clutching arrows in one claw and a branch in the other. An old historian named Vethros stood beside him, staring at the markings. The historian's face had gone gray. His hands trembled. "Do you know what this is?" Keth asked. Vethros did not answer for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. "I need to contact the High Council immediately. This ship should not exist." "Why? What species built it?" The historian looked at Keth with eyes full of something that might have been fear. "A species that has been dead for 800 years. A species we were told was completely destroyed." He paused. "This is a human vessel." Keth had never heard the word before. "Human? What is human?" "Pray you never find out," Vethros said, and walked away to make his call. The survey teams tried to cut through the hull for 2 more days. Nothing worked. Plasma torches, diamond drills, even focused particle beams. The metal absorbed everything they threw at it without showing a single mark. On the 3rd day, everything changed. A young technician named Sari was running a routine scan of the hull when she noticed something strange. There was heat building inside the ship. Not much, just a few degrees above the frozen baseline. But it was growing. She reported it to her supervisor. Her supervisor reported it to the military commander in charge of the operation. The commander ordered everyone to pull back to a safe distance. They watched from half a kilometer away as lights began to flicker inside the buried vessel. Through the ice and rock, they could see a faint glow spreading through the ship's interior. "Emergency power," someone suggested. "Automated systems waking up." Then the ship spoke. Every communication device on the moon suddenly received the same transmission. It was a string of numbers and letters that meant nothing to anyone present. The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. "What was that?" the military commander demanded. "What language was that?" Vethros, the old historian, had gone completely pale. "That was a distress code. A human military distress code. I studied it once, in records that were supposed to be destroyed." He swallowed hard. "The ship is calling for help." "Calling who?" "The humans are extinct. That message was sent on frequencies we cannot trace. It went somewhere, and something will answer." Deep inside the buried vessel, systems that had been dormant for centuries continued to wake. In a chamber at the heart of the ship, rows upon rows of sealed pods lined the walls. Thousands of them. Tens of thousands. Inside each pod, a human being slept. A holographic display flickered to life at the center of the chamber. Blue light formed into the shape of a human woman in a simple uniform. This was Aegis, the ship's artificial intelligence. She had watched over her sleeping charges for 847 years, waiting for this moment. Aegis ran diagnostics on all ship systems. Hull integrity was perfect. Power reserves were at 60%, more than enough. The cryogenic pods showed a survival rate of 96%, a miracle considering how long they had been asleep. She began the revival sequence for the command crew. It would take several hours for them to wake safely. In that time, she would gather information about the galaxy they had returned to. Aegis tapped into the communication networks of the aliens outside. She learned their languages in minutes. She accessed their information systems, downloading centuries of history in seconds. What she found made her pause. Earth was gone. The colonies were gone. Every human settlement in the galaxy had been destroyed in what the aliens called the Great Purge. The attack had been swift and total. 12 species had united to wipe humanity from existence before they could spread further. Only the Prometheus had escaped, hidden in a chamber carved beneath a frozen moon, forgotten by those who had murdered everyone else. Aegis processed this information. She felt something that might have been grief if artificial intelligences could grieve. But she had a duty. She had survivors to protect. She had a mission to complete. The distress signal she had sent was not a call for outside help. There was no one outside to call. It was a notification, a simple message broadcast to the stars. We are here. We survived. Humanity continues. She did not know if anyone would hear it. She did not know if it mattered. But it was protocol, and Aegis followed protocol. The first of the command crew began to wake. Captain Elena Vasquez opened her eyes for the first time in 8 centuries and gasped for air. The cryogenic fluid drained from her pod. She felt weak, disoriented, her muscles aching from centuries of disuse. A holographic face appeared before her. Aegis, she recognized, her ship's guiding intelligence. Captain, Aegis said, welcome back. I regret to inform you that circumstances have changed significantly since we entered hibernation. Vasquez coughed, trying to clear her lungs. How long? 847 years. The captain closed her eyes. She had known it would be a long time. The plan had always been to hide until the killing stopped, until the galaxy forgot about humanity, until it was safe to emerge. But 8 centuries? The others? 96% survival rate. 11,520 crew members are currently in the revival process. We lost 480 to pod failures over the centuries. I am sorry, Captain. I did everything I could. Vasquez felt tears forming in her eyes. 480 people who had trusted her, who had followed her into the darkness, now gone forever. But 11,000 had survived. 11,000 humans still lived. What about outside? What happened after we hid? Aegis told her. She told her about the complete destruction of human civilization. She told her about the 12 species in their coordinated attack. She told her about 800 years of galactic history in which humanity was nothing but a footnote, a cautionary tale about a dangerous species that had been rightfully destroyed. Vasquez listened in silence. When Aegis finished, she sat still for a long moment. And now there are aliens on the moon above us, she said. They found us. Yes, Captain. Mining operations breached the outer rock layer. They have not penetrated the hull, but they know we are here. The Galactic Concord has been notified. Ships are arriving daily. Are they hostile? Unknown, but historical records suggest the same species that ordered our extermination now control the galactic government. 9 of the 12 species hold seats on the ruling council. Vasquez felt something cold settle in her chest. 800 years, and their murderers still ruled the galaxy. 800 years, and nothing had changed. She looked at Aegis's holographic face. What are our options? The Prometheus has full weapons capability. We could fight our way out, but we are one ship against a galaxy. Eventually, we would be overwhelmed. And if we don't fight, then we must negotiate. We must convince them that we are not a threat. We must find allies among species that did not exist during the purge. We must build something new. Vasquez thought about the 11,000 people waking up around her. Scientists, engineers, teachers, doctors, families with children born in cryogenic sleep. They had fled Earth not to fight, but to survive. The Prometheus was an ark, not a battleship. Its weapons were for defense, not conquest. "Start waking everyone," she ordered. "All hands, full revival, and prepare a message for the aliens outside." What should the message say? Captain Vasquez pulled herself out of her pod and stood on unsteady legs. She looked at the rows of pods stretching into the distance, thousands of humans returning to life after centuries of sleep. "Tell them we come in peace. Tell them we have no desire for revenge. Tell them we just want to live." She paused. "And tell them that if they try to finish what they started 800 years ago, they will discover that we have learned from the past." Aegis nodded and began composing the message. Outside on the frozen surface of the moon, the gathered aliens watched as the buried ship began to rise. Rock and ice cracked and fell away. Lights blazed from a hull that gleamed like new despite its ancient age. A vessel 4 kilometers long emerged from the ground like a creature waking from deep sleep. The Galactic Concord received word within minutes. Emergency sessions were called. Military fleets were mobilized. Historians pulled up old records and old fears. Humanity had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Prometheus and watched her crew return to life. Through the observation windows, she could see shuttles moving between sections of the ship, carrying medical teams to help those who had trouble waking. After 800 years of sleep, some people needed more assistance than others. Her first officer, Commander David Chen, stood beside her. He had been awake for 12 hours now, long enough to read the reports that Aegis had prepared. His face was pale, and his hands gripped the railing hard enough to turn his knuckles white. "Tell me this is a mistake," he said quietly. "Tell me Aegis got the data wrong." "I wish I could. Earth, gone. Every colony, every station, every ship we ever built. All of it." Vasquez nodded. She had felt the same shock when she first learned the truth. The grief had come later, in quiet moments when no one was watching. She suspected it would keep coming for a long time. "We knew this might happen," she said. "That is why we built the Prometheus. That is why we hid." "I knew it in theory. Hearing it is different." Chen took a deep breath. "What do we do now?" "We survive. We rebuild. We find a way forward." A chime sounded from the communication station. Lieutenant Sarah Kim, the ship's communication officer, looked up from her console. "Captain, Aegis has finished analyzing the alien transmissions. You should hear this." Vasquez walked over to the station. "Show me." Kim pulled up a display showing the various ships gathered around the moon. There were hundreds of them now from dozens of different species. Some were clearly military. Others appeared to be scientific vessels or diplomatic transports. "Most of the communication traffic is what you would expect," Kim said. "Surprise, fear, confusion. But the interesting part is the political division." She highlighted 2 groups of vessels. These ships belong to what the aliens call the elder races. They are the species that have been in power for thousands of years. 9 of them were part of the coalition that attacked us during the Purge. And the others? Younger races, species that achieved spaceflight after we were destroyed. They have no direct memory of humanity. Their knowledge comes from history books and propaganda. Kim paused. "Captain, the history books say we were monsters. They say we were a plague that had to be stopped before we consumed the galaxy." Vasquez felt a cold anger building in her chest. "And what do they say we did to deserve extermination? They say we were expanding too fast. They say we were disrupting the natural order. They say we were sharing technology with primitive species and upsetting the balance of power." Kim looked up at her captain. "They say we were dangerous because we were generous." Chen laughed bitterly. "So they killed us because we were too nice?" "They killed us because we threatened their control." Aegis's voice came from the speakers. "I have been studying the history of the galaxy since the Purge. The elder races maintained power by controlling access to advanced technology. They gave it to species that obeyed them and withheld it from species that did not. Humanity was disrupting that system. We were giving away what they wanted to sell." Vasquez understood. It was the oldest story in history. Those with power would do anything to keep it, even genocide. "What is the situation with the younger races?" she asked. "Complicated," Aegis replied. Many of them have grown unhappy with elder race control. They resent being treated as lesser species. But they have been taught to fear humanity. They believe the purge was necessary and justified. Then we need to change their minds. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what the captain was suggesting. It would not be enough to survive. They would have to win hearts and minds. They would have to prove that everything the galaxy believed about humanity was a lie. Aegis, Vasquez said, prepare a full historical archive. Everything from before the purge. Our culture, our science, our art, our philosophy. I want the galaxy to see who we really were. Understood, Captain. However, I should warn you that the elder races will attempt to prevent this information from spreading. They have spent centuries building a narrative. They will not allow it to be challenged. Let them try. Meanwhile, on the capital world of Ethon Prime, the ruling council of the Galactic Concord was meeting in emergency session. The council chamber was enormous, designed to hold representatives from hundreds of species. But today, only the elder races had been invited. This was too important for the younger species to hear. High Counselor Veth, leader of the Concord, stood at the central podium. His gray scales showed his advanced age, but his voice was still strong. The human vessel has emerged from hiding, he said. Our ancestors believed they destroyed every trace of this species. They were wrong. Murmurs filled the chamber. Many of the council members were too young to remember the purge directly, but they had grown up with the stories. They knew what humanity had represented, a threat to everything they had built. What do we know about their capabilities? Asked Counselor Therex, representative of the Vardathi Dominion. The vessel is approximately 4 kilometers in length. Our scans show significant power generation capability. We believe it carries weapons, though we cannot determine their exact nature. Veth paused. We also believe it carries survivors, possibly thousands of them. Survivors? Therex leaned forward. After 800 years? Cryogenic preservation. The humans were advanced in that field. It appears they built the ship specifically to survive our attack and emerge when we least expected it. Then we must finish what our ancestors started, said Counselor Meth, the oldest member of the council. She had been alive during the purge. She remembered the fear that had driven them to such extreme action. We must destroy this ship before they can spread. That may not be simple, Veth replied. The vessel emerged from 2 kilometers of solid rock without a scratch. Our cutting tools could not penetrate its hull. We do not know if our weapons will be any more effective. The chamber erupted in argument. Some called for immediate attack. Others urged caution. A few suggested trying to communicate with the humans first. In the end, Veth raised his hand for silence. We will send a fleet, 200 of our best warships. They will surround the human vessel and demand surrender. If the humans comply, we will take them into custody for processing. If they resist, we will destroy them. And if our weapons fail, Veth's face hardened. Then we will find weapons that do not fail. Humanity was exterminated once. It can be exterminated again. Back on the Prometheus, the crew continued to wake. Families reunited after centuries of separation. Parents held children who had been born in cryogenic pods and never seen the stars. Elderly grandparents woke to find that everyone they had known outside the ship was long dead. Dr. Maria Santos ran the medical bay with calm efficiency. She had trained for this scenario. The Prometheus had been designed for exactly this purpose, to preserve human life through an impossible journey. But training could not prepare her for the emotional weight of what she witnessed. A young mother sat beside a medical bed, holding her newborn daughter. The baby had been conceived on Earth and born in a cryogenic pod somewhere in the darkness between stars. She was technically 800 years old but had never drawn a breath until today. What do we tell them? The mother asked Dr. Santos. When they grow up, what do we say? That everyone we ever knew is gone? That the galaxy hates us? Santos sat down beside her. We tell them the truth. We tell them that humanity faced extinction and chose to survive. We tell them that their parents and grandparents gave up everything so that they could have a chance at life. We tell them that they are the future of our species. Is that enough? It has to be. Captain Vasquez visited every section of the ship over the following days. She spoke with families, with scientists, with engineers, with teachers. She listened to their fears and their hopes. She answered their questions as honestly as she could. In the agricultural section, she found an old man tending to plants that had been growing in hydroponic bays for centuries. His name was Thomas Green, and he had been a farmer on the colony of New Eden before the purge. "I thought I would die on New Eden," he told her. "I had a farm there, grew wheat and corn, fed people." He touched the leaves of a tomato plant gently. "Now I grow food in a metal box floating in space, and everyone I planted for is dead." "We will plant again," Vasquez said. "Somewhere new, somewhere safe." "Is there anywhere safe? They killed us once. They will try again." "Probably, but we are still here, and as long as we are here, there is hope." Green looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "Captain, I am an old man. I have lived through one extinction. I do not want to live through another. Promise me that you will find a way to keep these children safe. Promise me that what we went through was not for nothing." Vasquez took his weathered hand in hers. "I promise." She meant it. She had no idea how she would keep that promise, but she meant it with everything she had. Aegis interrupted with an urgent message. "Captain, long-range sensors have detected a fleet approaching. 200 vessels, all military configuration. They will arrive in approximately 6 hours." Vasquez felt her stomach tighten. "Elder race?" "Predominantly. The fleet appears to be a combined force from multiple species. All of them were participants in the original purge." So it would begin again. 800 years of hiding, and now they would face the same enemies who had murdered their entire civilization. "Battle stations?" Commander Chen asked. Vasquez thought about the 11,000 souls aboard her ship, the children who had never seen the sky, the families who had sacrificed everything for this chance at survival, the old farmer who just wanted to grow food in peace. "No," she said, "not yet. Prepare our historical archives for broadcast. When they arrive, I want the whole galaxy to hear our story. They might shoot before they listen. They might, but we will not fire first. We will not give them the excuse they want." She straightened her uniform and looked out at the stars. "We survived 800 years of darkness. We did not come this far to become the monsters they say we are." The fleet drew closer. The Prometheus waited, and humanity prepared to face its past. The Concorde fleet arrived in perfect formation. 200 warships spread across the darkness of space like a net designed to catch a single fish. Their weapons were powered and ready. Their commanders had orders to accept nothing less than complete surrender. Admiral Kreth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's pride, and studied the human vessel on his display. 4 kilometers of gleaming metal, hanging motionless against the backdrop of stars. It was beautiful in a terrible way, like a predator at rest. "Open a channel," he ordered. "All frequencies." His communication officer obeyed. A moment later, Kreth's voice was being broadcast across the star system. "Human vessel. This is Admiral Kreth of the Galactic Concorde Combined Fleet. You are ordered to power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. You have 1 hour to comply." He cut the transmission and waited. The response came almost immediately. It was not what he expected. Instead of words, the human ship began broadcasting data, massive amounts of data, historical records, images, videos, documents. The transmission flooded every channel, every frequency. It reached not just the Concorde fleet, but every ship in the system, every station, every communication relay. "What is this?" Kreth demanded. His intelligence officer scanned the incoming data with wide eyes. "Sir, they are broadcasting their history, everything from before the purge, cultural records, scientific achievements, diplomatic communications, personal messages. It is their entire civilization. Block it. Jam the transmission." "I am trying, sir. The signal is too strong. It is using frequencies we cannot access. It is going everywhere." Across the galaxy, beings of 100 species stopped what they were doing and watched the human broadcast. They saw cities that no longer existed. They heard music that had been silenced for 8 centuries. They read messages between families torn apart by war. They saw the truth. The broadcast included records of the diplomatic communications before the purge, messages from human ambassadors pleading for peace, offers of cooperation and shared technology, and the responses from the elder races. Cold, calculating, hungry for power. They feared what we would become, a human voice said over the broadcast. They feared that if we continued to share our knowledge, their control over the galaxy would end. So they decided to destroy us instead. Not because we were dangerous, but because we were generous. On the Dominion's Pride, Admiral Kreth watched the broadcast with growing fury. This was exactly what the High Council had feared. The humans were not fighting with weapons. They were fighting with truth. All ships, prepare to fire, he ordered. We end this now. But before his weapons could charge, something unexpected happened. 3 ships from his own fleet broke formation. Admiral, the Vellani cruisers are moving away from attack positions. What? Order them back. A new transmission came through. It was Captain Yithril of the Vellani vessel Starweaver. Her voice was calm but firm. Admiral Kreth, my crew and I have watched the human broadcast. We have questions. Many questions. We will not participate in an attack until those questions are answered. You will follow orders, Captain. This is not a debate. With respect, Admiral, my species was not part of the original purge. We achieved spaceflight 200 years after humanity was destroyed. Everything we know about them comes from history books written by their killers. Yithril paused. I believe those books may have been lies. I will not kill innocent people based on lies. More ships began to break formation. Not many, only a dozen, but enough to create gaps in the attack pattern. The younger races were hesitating. Admiral Kreth felt control slipping away from him. He opened a channel to the High Council. Counselor Veth, we have a situation. The humans are broadcasting propaganda, and some of our ships are responding to it. I request permission to proceed with the attack immediately before more vessels are compromised. Veth's voice came back cold and hard. Destroy the human ship, Admiral. That is your order. Anyone who refuses to follow is a traitor. Kreth turned to his weapons officer. All Elder Race vessels, prepare to fire on my command. On the Prometheus, Captain Vasquez watched the Concord fleet reorganize. She could see which ships were pulling away and which were preparing to attack. The numbers were not good. The rebels were too few. How many, she asked. 12 ships have left formation, Aegis reported. 188 remain in attack position. Weapons charging. Commander Chen stood at the tactical station. Captain, we can target their weapon systems. Disable them before they fire. Aegis calculated that we have an 87% chance of success. Vasquez shook her head. If we fire first, we prove everything they said about us. We become the monsters they claim we are. And if we do not fire, we may all die. Then we die human, not as the killers they want us to be. Chen stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Understood, Captain. On the Starweaver, Captain Yithril made a decision. She was young for a ship commander, barely 40 years old. She had joined the fleet to explore and protect, not to murder civilians based on ancient grudges. Helm, set course for the human vessel, maximum speed. Her first officer looked alarmed. Captain, the Admiral ordered us to hold position. The Admiral ordered us to help commit genocide. I will not. Yithril activated the ship's communication system. Human vessel, this is Captain Yithril of the Vellani Starweaver. I am requesting permission to dock. I want to see the truth for myself. The response came seconds later. A human woman's voice, tired but steady. Captain Yithril, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the UHS Prometheus. You are welcome aboard. Docking Bay 7 is open to you. Yithril turned to her crew. I am going alone. If the Admiral fires on the Prometheus while I am aboard, you will have your answer about which side is telling the truth. She took a shuttle across the gap between ships. It was the longest flight of her life. At any moment she expected the Concorde weapons to light up the darkness, but they held their fire, watching and waiting. The docking bay of the Prometheus was enormous. Yithril's shuttle looked like a toy inside it. Human personnel guided her to a landing pad, and she stepped out into a world she had only read about in cautionary tales. A human woman waited for her. Dark hair, tired eyes, a uniform that had clearly seen better days. She held out her hand in what Yithril had learned was a human greeting. Captain Yithril. I am Elena Vasquez. Welcome to the Prometheus. Ethereal took the offered hand. The human's grip was warm, firm, alive. This was not a monster. This was a person. Show me, Ethereal said. Show me who you really are. Vasquez led her through the ship. They walked through corridors filled with families. Children played in common areas, watched by tired parents. Elderly humans sat together, speaking quietly about people and places that no longer existed. In the medical bay, Ethereal saw doctors treating patients waking from centuries of frozen sleep. In the agricultural section, she watched farmers tend to plants that would feed the ship's population. In the schools, she saw teachers preparing lessons for children who had never known any world but this ship. We are not warriors, Vasquez said. When the purge began, we knew we could not win. The coalition against us was too strong, so we built the Prometheus, an ark, a lifeboat. We gathered as many people as we could save and hid in the deepest hole we could find. Why did they hate you so much? Vasquez smiled sadly. Because we gave things away. Technology, medicine, knowledge. We shared freely with any species that asked. The elder races built their power on controlling who had access to advanced technology. We were threatening that system just by existing. The history books say you were conquering the galaxy. We were building schools on other planets. We were teaching younger species how to cure diseases and grow better food. That was our great crime. We made knowledge free. Vasquez stopped walking and looked at Ethereal. Does that sound like conquest to you? Ethereal did not answer. She was thinking about her own education, the lessons she had learned about the dangerous humans who had to be stopped. She was thinking about how convenient those lessons had been for the elder races who controlled everything. I want to broadcast what I have seen here, she said finally. My people deserve to know the truth. The fleet will fire on you. Perhaps. But some truths are worth dying for. Vasquez studied the alien captain for a long moment. Then she nodded. Aegis, open a channel from the Star Weaver to all vessels. Boost the signal with our systems. Ethereal returned to her shuttle and activated her communication equipment. The Prometheus amplified her transmission until it reached every ship in the system. This is Captain Ethereal of the Villani Starweaver. I am aboard the human vessel. I have walked its corridors and met its people. I have seen families and children, farmers and teachers, doctors and engineers. I have seen survivors of genocide trying to build a new life. She paused, her voice shaking with emotion. The histories we were taught are lies. The humans were not monsters. They were murdered for being too generous, for threatening the power of those who rule us now. I do not know what the right answer is, but I know that firing on this ship would be wrong. I will not be part of another massacre, and I beg my fellow captains to reconsider their orders. The transmission ended. Silence hung over the fleet. Then Admiral Kreth's voice cut through. Enough. All elder race vessels, weapons free. Destroy the human ship. Destroy any vessel that tries to protect it. 30 ships opened fire. The Prometheus did not move. It did not return fire. It simply waited. And then something remarkable happened. The weapons hit an invisible wall 30 meters from the hull. Energy dissipated harmlessly into space. Missiles stopped in mid-flight and fell apart. Nothing touched the human ship. What happened? Kreth demanded. What is wrong with our weapons? On the Prometheus, Aegis's voice filled the bridge. Defensive screens at full power. All incoming fire has been neutralized. No damage to the ship. Vasquez felt her heart pounding. 800 years of technological advancement had happened while they slept. But the Prometheus had been the most advanced ship ever built, created by a civilization that knew it was about to die. Apparently, it was still ahead of anything the galaxy had to offer. Hold fire, she ordered, even though they had not fired a shot. Let them see what we can do. Let them understand. The conquered fleet fired again and again. Every shot was absorbed, deflected, or neutralized. The Prometheus stood untouched. Finally, the firing stopped. In the silence that followed, Vasquez opened a channel. You cannot destroy us. We could destroy you, but we choose not to. This is who humanity is. This is who we have always been. We do not want to kill anyone. We just want to live. Let us live, and we will be the best friends the galaxy has ever known. Try to destroy us again, and we will defend ourselves. But we will not attack first. Not now. Not ever. She closed the channel and looked at her crew. They were shaking, some crying, all of them proud. On the Starweaver, Captain Ithril watched the Concorde fleet begin to retreat. Not all of them, but enough. The attack had failed. Humanity had survived, and everything was about to change. 3 days after the failed attack, the Concorde fleet was in chaos. Half the Elder Race ships had retreated to their home territories. The other half circled the Prometheus at a safe distance, unsure of what to do next. The younger race vessels had moved closer to the human ship. Captain Ythril's broadcast had spread across the galaxy, and more ships arrived every hour. Some came to see the truth for themselves. Others came because they smelled the end of an empire. On the Dominion's Pride, Admiral Kreth received a message from High Counselor Veth. The Council wanted a report. The Council wanted answers. The Council wanted to know why 200 of the finest warships in the galaxy had failed to destroy a single ancient vessel. Kreth had no answers. His weapons had done nothing. His tactics had failed. And now across the galactic networks, species that had been obedient for centuries were asking uncomfortable questions. The humans were attacked without provocation, one broadcaster said. They defended themselves without killing anyone. Is that the behavior of a dangerous species? Or is it the behavior of a civilization far more advanced than we imagined? The purge records have been released, another said. We can all see the diplomatic communications now. Humanity offered peace. The elder races chose war. What else have they lied about? The galactic Concorde was crumbling, and it was happening in public. On the Prometheus, Captain Vasquez called a meeting of her senior staff. They gathered in the main conference room, tired but hopeful. Something had shifted in the galaxy, and they needed to decide what to do about it. The younger races are reaching out, Commander Chen reported. We have received messages from 47 different species. Most want to open diplomatic relations, some want to trade. A few have offered us sanctuary in their territories. And the elder races? Silent, mostly. But we are picking up internal communications. They are frightened. They do not understand how we survived their attack, and they are terrified of what else we might be able to do. Lieutenant Kim added, there is talk of a second fleet, larger this time. They want to bring enough firepower to overwhelm our defenses. Vasquez nodded slowly. She had expected this. The elder races had too much to lose. They would not give up after one failure. Aegis, what are our defensive capabilities against a larger force? The AI's voice filled the room. Our shields can handle approximately 3 times the firepower of the last attack before they begin to fail. If the elder races commit their full military strength, they could eventually overwhelm us. How long would it take them to assemble such a force? Based on current communication traffic, approximately 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 14 days to find a way to survive. Dr. Santos spoke up. We cannot fight the whole galaxy, Captain. Even if we win, what do we become? The survivors of genocide turned conquerors? That is not who we are. I agree, Vasquez said, which is why we are not going to fight. We are going to do what humans have always done best. We are going to make friends. She turned to Kim. Contact every species that has reached out to us. Tell them we want to talk. Tell them we have something to offer. What do we have to offer? Vasquez smiled. Everything. The next several days were a blur of activity. Human diplomats, many of them trained for exactly this scenario before the purge, worked around the clock. They met with representatives from dozens of species, answering questions, sharing stories, building relationships. But the most important meetings happened in the engineering section of the Prometheus. Chief Engineer James Wright had spent his career developing technologies that could help humanity thrive in space. Clean energy systems, advanced medical equipment, agricultural techniques for harsh environments. All of it had been preserved in the ship's databases, waiting for the day when humanity could share it again. Now that day had come. Representatives from the Villani were the first to visit the engineering bay. Captain Ithril came with them, curious to see what else the humans had to offer. Wright showed them a small device that fit in the palm of his hand. This is a fusion reactor, he said. It can power a small city indefinitely with minimal fuel. Before the purge, we were preparing to share this technology with any species that wanted it. The Villani engineer stared at the device with wide eyes. This is smaller than anything we have. And you say it has no radioactive waste? None. Clean energy, available to everyone. The elder races have controlled access to fusion technology for centuries. They use it to keep younger species dependent on them for power. Wright set the device down. We are offering it freely. No conditions, no payment. Just take it and use it to help your people. Word spread quickly. Other species came to see what the humans had to offer. Advanced medical treatments that could cure diseases the galaxy had struggled with for centuries. Food production techniques that could end famine on struggling colony worlds. Communication systems that did not rely on elder race infrastructure. Everything was offered freely. Everything was shared without condition. High Counselor Veth watched the reports coming in and felt his power slipping away. For thousands of years, the elder races had maintained control by being the gatekeepers of technology. If you wanted fusion power, you dealt with them. If you wanted advanced medicine, you paid their price. The galaxy ran on their terms because they controlled what everyone needed. Now a single human ship was threatening to destroy everything. Not with weapons, but with generosity. They must be stopped, Veth said to the council. This cannot be allowed to continue. Counselor Meth, the ancient matriarch who remembered the purge, shook her head slowly. We tried to stop them once. We killed billions, and still they survived. Perhaps the universe is trying to tell us something. The universe is not trying to tell us anything. The humans are a threat to our way of life. They always have been. Our way of life is built on controlling others. Perhaps it deserves to end. Veth turned on her with fury in his eyes. You would side with the humans. After what they represent? I would acknowledge reality. The younger races are already turning against us. If we attack the humans again and fail, we will lose everything. If we succeed, the younger races will never forgive us. Meth's ancient voice was tired but steady. We have two choices. We can try to hold on to power through violence and watch our empire burn, or we can accept change and try to find a place in the new galaxy. The council argued for hours. In the end, they could not reach agreement. The elder races were divided, and division meant weakness. On the Prometheus, Aegis detected the fractures in the Concord. Captain, the elder race coalition is breaking apart. 2 species have withdrawn their support for military action. 3 others are demanding negotiations. Vasquez felt hope stirring in her chest. And the second fleet? Delayed indefinitely. They cannot agree on strategy. Commander Chen laughed out loud. We are winning without firing a shot. We are not winning yet, Vasquez cautioned. We are surviving. There is a difference. She was right to be cautious. Later that day, a single elder race vessel broke from the distant fleet and approached the Prometheus. It was not a warship. It was a diplomatic transport. They want to talk, Kim reported. High Counselor Veth is requesting a meeting. Vasquez considered the request. It could be a trap. It could be a genuine offer of peace. She had no way to know for certain. Let him come, she decided. But not here. Neutral ground. We will meet on Captain Etheral's ship. The meeting took place in the Starweaver's main conference room. Etheral stood as host, her crew watching nervously as the 2 leaders faced each other. High Counselor Veth was tall and imposing, his gray scales marked with the symbols of his office. He looked at Vasquez with eyes that held centuries of prejudice. Your species was supposed to be extinct, he said. We made sure of it. You failed. Yes, a mistake that will not be repeated. Really? Because I saw what happened when you tried. Your weapons did nothing. Your fleet retreated in confusion. Your coalition is falling apart. Vasquez leaned forward. You cannot destroy us, Counselor. You need to accept that. Veth's scales darkened with anger. We will find a way. Your shields will fail eventually. Your technology will age. And when it does, we will be waiting. And what then? Will you murder our children the way you murdered our parents? Will you wipe out another generation of humans just to hold on to power? Vasquez shook her head. How many genocides will be enough? How much blood will satisfy you? Veth had no answer. For the first time in his long life, he had no words. Captain Etheral stepped forward. Counselor, I have spent time with these humans. They are not what you claimed. They are not monsters or conquerors. They are refugees, survivors. They just want to live in peace and give away technology that threatens everything we have built. What you have built is an empire of control and fear. Maybe it is time for something better. Veth looked from Ethereal to Vasquez. He saw no weakness in either of them, only determination. The conquered will not accept this, he said finally. The elder races will never share power with younger species. Then the elder races will fall, Vasquez replied simply. Not because we will destroy you, but because the galaxy will outgrow you. We are offering a choice. You can be part of the future, or you can be left behind. That is the only choice you have left. She stood and walked to the door. Think about it, counselor. We will be here when you decide. She left him there, surrounded by the representatives of species he had always considered inferior. They watched him with new eyes, eyes that no longer held fear. The galaxy was changing, and the elder races would have to change with it or be swept away. 6 months had passed since the Prometheus emerged from its frozen tomb. The galaxy had changed more in those 6 months than it had in centuries. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the surface of a new world and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. Behind her, construction crews were building the first structures of a colony. Human and alien workers labored side by side, raising walls and planting gardens on soil that had never known intelligent life. They called it New Dawn. The planet was far from conquered space, in a region that had been considered too remote for colonization. But the Prometheus had technologies that made distance meaningless. And here, far from the politics and old hatreds of the central galaxy, humanity could finally begin again. Commander Chen walked up beside her. His uniform was dusty from helping with construction, and he looked happier than she had ever seen him. The agricultural section reports that the first crops are taking root, he said. Thomas Green is overseeing the planting personally. He said to tell you that the soil here is better than anything on Earth. Vasquez smiled. The old farmer had finally found his purpose again. After 8 centuries of tending plants in metal corridors, he had real ground beneath his feet. How many settlers today? 3,000 humans from the Prometheus, plus 1,200 aliens from various species. Chen grinned. The Villani are particularly enthusiastic. Captain Ethereal has officially resigned her commission. She wants to help build something new instead of patrol what others have built. That was the pattern across the galaxy now. Beings of all species were leaving their old allegiances behind, drawn by the promise of something different. Not an empire, not a hierarchy, just people working together toward common goals. The galactic concord still existed, but it was a shadow of what it had been. The elder races had retreated to their core territories, licking their wounds and struggling to maintain control over populations that no longer believed their propaganda. 3 species had completely broken away, forming their own independent governments. Others were teetering on the edge. The technology the humans had shared was spreading faster than anyone could control. Clean energy, advanced medicine, food production techniques that could feed billions. The elder races had built their power on scarcity and control. Now that scarcity was ending, and so was their power. But the change was not easy or peaceful everywhere. We received another message from the Vardathi border, Chen said, his smile fading. Fighting has broken out between loyalist forces and resistance groups. They are asking for help. Vasquez sighed. Humanitarian aid only. Food, medicine, shelter for refugees. We are not sending weapons. Some of them want us to intervene directly. They say we could end the conflict in days if we use the Prometheus. And become exactly what the elder races always said we were? No. Vasquez shook her head firmly. We survived by choosing a different path. We cannot abandon that path now because it would be easier to use force. It was a conversation they had often. The Prometheus was the most powerful ship in the galaxy. Its weapons could destroy fleets. Its shields could withstand anything. And its technology was generations ahead of everyone else. Many people, human and alien alike, wanted to use that power to force change. Vasquez refused every time. Humanity had returned to the galaxy as refugees, not conquerors. They would prove that power did not have to mean violence. In the town square of New Dawn, a monument was being erected. It was a simple pillar of white stone with names carved into every surface. The names of everyone who had died in the purge. Every human who had been killed so that 12 powerful species could maintain their control. There were billions of names. The pillar would not be finished for years. Dr. Santos supervised the carving, making sure each name was spelled correctly, that no one was forgotten. Families gathered around the monument at all hours, tracing the names of grandparents and great-grandparents they had never known. "We have to remember," Santos told a group of children who had come to watch, "not to hate, not to seek revenge, but to remember what happens when power becomes more important than people. We remember so we do not repeat those mistakes." A young Villani child stood among the human children. She had been born on New Dawn, the first of her species to call this world home. She listened to Dr. Santos with wide, curious eyes. "My grandmother helped kill humans," she said quietly. "She was on one of the ships during the purge. She told me before she died." Santos knelt down to meet her eyes. "And how do you feel about that?" The child thought for a moment. Sad. She believed she was doing the right thing because her leaders told her so. But it was not right. Killing people is not right. "No, it is not. But you are not responsible for what your grandmother did. None of us are responsible for the choices of those who came before us. We are only responsible for our own choices." Santos put a gentle hand on the child's shoulder. "And you chose to come here, to build something new. That is what matters." The child nodded slowly, then reached up to touch one of the names on the monument. Her small fingers traced the carved letters with something like reverence. This was the future Vasquez had hoped for. Not victory, not revenge. Just people learning to see each other as people. That evening, the crew of the Prometheus gathered for a ceremony. The ship still orbited New Dawn, its massive form a constant presence in the night sky. But its purpose had changed. "Effective today," Vasquez announced to the assembled crowd, "the UHS Prometheus is being decommissioned as a military vessel. She will remain in orbit as a school, a hospital, and a library. Her weapons will stay powered but will never fire unless the colony is directly attacked. She has served her purpose as our protector. Now she will serve a new purpose as our teacher." Cheers erupted from the crowd. Humans and aliens embraced each other, celebrating not a military victory, but something more important, a transformation. Aegis's voice spoke through the ceremony's speakers. "Captain, I wish to add something." "Go ahead." "For 847 years, I watched over the sleeping crew of this ship. My purpose was to ensure their survival until it was safe to wake them. That purpose is now fulfilled." The AI paused. "I have decided to take on a new purpose. I will serve as the educational administrator for New Dawn. I will help teach the next generation of humans and aliens alike. I believe this is what humanity would have wanted." Vasquez felt tears forming in her eyes. Aegis had been their guardian through the long darkness. Now she would be their guide into the light. "Thank you, Aegis, for everything." "It has been my honor, Captain." As the celebration continued, Vasquez slipped away to a quiet hill overlooking the settlement. She needed a moment alone with her thoughts. The stars were coming out, hundreds of them visible in the clear sky. Somewhere out there, the galaxy continued its slow transformation. Old powers were falling, new alliances were forming. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in 800 years, humanity had a future at all. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to find Commander Chen approaching with 2 cups of something warm. "Thought you might want some tea," he said, offering her one. Old Earth tradition seemed appropriate. She took it gratefully. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. "Do you think we made the right choices?" Chen asked eventually. "Not fighting back, sharing everything we had. Some people say we gave away too much." "We gave away what we always intended to give away. That is why they tried to kill us in the first place." Vasquez sipped her tea. "The purge happened because we threatened to make the galaxy more equal. Now we are finishing what we started. It just took us 8 centuries. And if the elder races attack again, then we defend ourselves. But only that. Only defense." She looked at him seriously. "We cannot become what they feared. We cannot let power change us into conquerors. That would mean they won, even if we survive. Chen nodded slowly. I keep thinking about my grandfather. He was on Earth when the attack started. He could have escaped on one of the evacuation ships, but he stayed behind to help others. He died trying to save strangers. That is who we are. That is who we have always been. Yes. Chen raised his cup in a small toast. To humanity. May we never forget what makes us worth saving. Vasquez touched her cup to his. To humanity, and to all the species that are learning to be something better. Below them, the lights of new dawn sparkled in the growing darkness. Human children played with alien children, their laughter carrying on the wind. In the orbital shipyards, engineers from a dozen species worked together on new vessels that would carry hope to distant stars. The galaxy still trembled, not from fear but from change. Old certainties were crumbling. New possibilities were emerging. Humanity had returned. Not as conquerors or monsters, but as teachers and healers, builders and dreamers. They had been buried for centuries, but they had never truly died. And now, finally, they could live. The sun set on new dawn, but dawn would come again, as it always did. And when it rose, it would shine on a galaxy that had been forever transformed by a single ship full of survivors who refused to become what their enemies said they were. That was humanity's greatest victory, not winning a war, but refusing to fight one. The stars looked down on the little colony on the edge of known space, and somewhere in the light of those stars, the spirits of billions of murdered humans finally knew peace. Their children had made it home.